I am so excited to film today's tutorial. I am filming the Milan Mini, and this is from Pink Pony Designs. This is my first tutorial for her. I love her patterns. I have several. I hope to do many more. I just think they're really fun, unique, cute patterns. This one is so simple, but it comes out so cute, and it's because it is very small and just adorable. So I am going to go through my materials that I'm using and the pieces. I've had back and forth as to if people like me going over the pieces in my video, so I want to try to do a balance of both. But for this one, where there's just a few, I'm going to go kind of quickly. So I'm using sewing string from Wizardry. This is Blue Moon. I'm going to use webbing on my strap. It doesn't really match, but I'm being kind of lazy today. I have one piece of number 5 zipper tape, one zipper pull. This is from Jen's Fabric. The zipper tape is from So Majestic. I'm going to have a zipper pocket on the back. I am going to also be adding a tag from Heartwood and Hide on the back. For the flap, I'm using a panel from Jen's Fabrics, but this is a cotton canvas from her. This is a cotton woven. It is from Jen's Fabric as well. So this is the flap, both the exterior and the lining. This is the main panel pieces. You're going to have 2 exterior, 2 lining. We're going to have the exterior going to be this print, the lining going to be this print. I'm going to have 2 gusset pieces, a lining and exterior piece. I'm going to have 2 D-ring connectors. I'm going to be using 1/2 inch hardware for my D-ring. You could use bigger, like a 3/4, but this is a small bag, so keep that in mind. The D-rings for this size of a 1/2 inch fit perfectly, in my opinion. I'm going to be using this twist lock, but I am not going to be showing how to add this on camera. I have a couple other videos where I showed the installation on camera. It's kind of tricky to do it because you can't, when I'm doing it, I like to pull it kind of close to my body and I can't get a good view on camera. So if you want detailed instructions of how to do a twist lock, I can give you that link. You could use a magnetic snap. You could use a cam snap. You could even not have anything at all for this flap. In the pattern instructions, they call for piping to go around the flap. It's an option. I'm not going to use it. The only piping I thought to add would have been a white, and I realized that it would just not show up well since this would be the fabric it's against. And so I'm just deciding to leave off that step. I may do one of these later where I do add the piping, but for this one, I'm not going to. Everything's cotton woven except my panel is a cotton canvas. I have everything interfaced with a layer of So Fuse from Casting Handcrafted, but what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go and add a layer of Thermolan, and I'll keep it out of the seam allowance, or try to decently keep it out of the seam allowance. That's the materials. I'm going to go and get my Thermolan fused on here, and then we'll be back to start sewing up this bag. To get this pattern started, I'm going to start working on the back panel. I'm putting the zipper pocket on the exterior back panel when really it's supposed to go on the interior. The reason why I'm doing that is just because I wanted to showcase the pretty zipper pull and zipper tape. I think it'll look cute. But because I'm doing that, I have to take into consideration that the flap is going to be down on this back panel. If that is too much math for you, or if you're just like, I don't want to risk messing it up, just put the pocket inside and you won't have those issues. I have this lining pocket piece. Mine is all one piece. No problems at all using the 2 pieces. I take this lining pocket piece and I place it right sides together with the exterior back piece. I went ahead and drew on my box that I'm going to be sewing on. Let me just get that in place, and I have a specific place where I want that because on the back I cut the box out of the fleece. You don't have to do that. It's just what I wanted to do to make it lay a little bit easier. So I'm going to center this lining pocket piece onto the back, have it placed exactly where I want it, and I have it low enough so that it won't affect the placement of the flap. That is the main thing I wanted to be careful and considerate of. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to sew on the 2 long lines. I'm not sewing the short sides of the box just because I find it's a little bit easier for me whenever I turn everything to make sure it looks good. So I'll backstitch when I start and stop on each line, and I'm going to sew directly on those lines. Then I just fold this in half, make a cut so that I can cut through all the layers right down the middle. I'm going to make a small inverted V, making sure I don't cut into any of my stitches. And that is what that looks like, a hole that's going through all pieces. I'm going to push this lining through. I'm going to take it over to the iron, but I'm definitely going to iron it really well because my goal is to make sure that I don't see any of this lining from the exterior. After I have that ironed, I will come back and then we will insert the zipper. Take your zipper with the pull on it and place it so that you can see the zipper teeth centered in the opening of the box. You can use clips, pins, or even double-sided tape if you wanted to. What you're going to do now is you're going to stitch all around the perimeter of this box about 1/8 of an inch away, trying to make for sure that you're keeping the zipper teeth centered, and you may need to move the pull if it's getting in the way. Now that I have the zipper attached, what I'll do is I can just flip it over, fold the lining down, and then I'll trim off any overhang. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew down both sides. The benefit of doing the 2 lining pieces that the pattern designer gives you is so you avoid having the waste or the overhang at the bottom. Just to know as to why they do it that way, it is the more acceptable way to do it because she's already figured out the exact measurements. So now that I have this pressed flat, I'm going to sew down both sides, locking in my stitches at the bottom. I am not sewing across the bottom because I'm going to use the designer's method of turning this bag by birthing it through this zipper pocket. I'm going to flip this piece over so I'm looking at the exterior. I'm going to sew as close as I can to the opening of the box, top stitching at the top and the bottom. After you complete those steps, go ahead and trim down your extra lining and zipper tape any overhang that you might have at the bottom. If you want to add a tag, what you will do is what I'm going to do, and I'll just do that off camera, is I'm going to flip that lining up. I'm going to center my tag right below, and then I'm going to stitch around. We will be done with this back piece until we have our flat finished and it's ready to attach it. I'm going to now work on my D-ring connector and the flap. So for my flap, you can see this is going to be the exterior and this is going to be the lining. I wanted to cut my lining, since it is directional, upside down so that when I open my flap, I will show you, I'll have these 2 together, and when you lift it up, it'll be the correct orientation. It's up to you how you want to do it, or just use a non-directional print. You're going to place your flap lining and exterior right sides together. You'll start sewing at the top here, back stitch, go all the way around, come up, go over, back stitch again. You want to leave an opening here at the top. You want to leave the opening big enough so that you can turn the flap through it. We want this flap to have a finished edge across the top so that we can attach it to the back. A couple things about the flap. If you're using piping, go ahead and add it now. If you're using a snap that doesn't go through both layers like my twist lock does, like if you're using a magnetic snap or a cam snap, you may want to go ahead and install it first. You don't have to. You could always reach through and do it. But I won't be installing my twist lock until after the bag is all the way completed. For your D-ring connector, what you're going to do with this is you're going to draw a line down the middle, fold both long edges to that line, and then fold again. I'm going to top stitch down both of these sides and add my D-ring. Then I'll just fold it in half and baste. Here's how the D-ring connector looks for the first one. I'll do the second one off camera. Here is how my flap looks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim down my seams. I'm going to trim it down to about 1/4 of an inch, but I'm not going to trim any in this unsewn area. I want to leave it the full size because that'll help aid me in having it neatly finished edge there whenever we go to top stitch all around. So whenever I come here, I'm going to come at an angle, so you can see I'm angling there, and then I'm actually kind of going to round this area. Different people have different methods of how to do that, but you want to just try to reduce some bulk in that corner, I feel, but everybody's different. Do what works best for you. You're going to slowly start turning this flap out through that opening. Then I'll take it over the iron and give it a good press, and then we'll top stitch. Now that I have it poked out kind of decently, I'm going to put my fingers right here and just kind of pull a little so that it kind of wants to fold in exactly the way I want it to. I'll help it just a little bit. I'm going to put some clips in place. I'm going to go over to the iron and flatten all this out and make sure I love the way it looks. Like you can see right here where this lining's poking out, I'll roll those seams a little bit more. I'll use my stiletto to kind of help smooth everything out. When I have it exactly the way I want, I'll iron it flat, and then we'll come back and talk about the next steps. I have this flap iron pressed flat, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch all around it, even across the top. I'm going to go just 1/8 of an inch, and that's going to close up this top pocket piece. So let's start on one side. Make sure you back stitch or pull your threads if you prefer. Keep everything with this opening kind of in line when you're sewing over it so it has a really nice finish. The top stitching is done on my flat piece. Also, like I said, I'm putting the twist lock on this last. I am not doing it right now. The pattern tells you to go ahead and put the placement there now. The reason why is because I am not good about getting the twist lock measurement perfect. If you are good with that, go ahead and use the pattern measurements and place yours now. The pattern also tells us to wait on this front exterior piece to add that male portion on this piece until the very end. The way you would do that is you would have that interior zipper pocket, you would reach the opening and add the prongs that way. It's not hard. Very easy to do it that way. I could do both. I could attach both of these after the major part, the most of the construction is done, but I'm going to risk it and go ahead and put my prongs in now, even though this male portion is going to be bulky, and whenever I'm turning the bag, I'll have to be really careful. But what I did was I marked the center according to the pattern measurements, how far down from the top. I made 2 lines where I'm going to use my seam ripper to cut. I'll slip my prongs in, and then I will put the washer on the back and push the prongs out. That's how I will do the male portion. For the female portion, this open end, this is the exterior, but if you look at the back, you can see there's 3 screws. So I'll actually have to cut through all my layers at the very end, but I want to make for sure to check the placement after I place the flap to make sure that it looks the way I want it to. I don't want to mess it up because I'm cutting a hole through everything. I'll put some glue. You can use Free Check, but Free Check's basically like glue, but I'll put some glue around the edges to finish it, but I won't show these steps. These will be steps that I do off camera. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and place this male lock, and then it's time to put everything together and finish up our bag. I pulled out the back exterior and my flap. I have 2 clips to note where the edge of this flap's going to go. Now I want to place this flap just like this. So it's going to be the lining part touching the back of the bag. I'm going to make sure it looks centered, not only along the sides here, but also along the zipper tape, so that everything looks really nice and neat. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to top stitch across this edge. We did 1/8 of an inch, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come another 1/8 of an inch away from that line, so it'll be about 1/4 of an inch from this finished edge to sew this in place. I'm going to backstitch. If you wanted to pull your threads, you could do that. But what I'm going to do is have my needle start with this first row of top stitching that's on the sides, and then go over to the other side where the top stitching ends, and that's where I will end. The flap is attached to the back. Now it's time to go ahead and put everything together. So you can see I have my opening in my zipper pocket. Here is my front exterior. Let's pull out one of our gusset pieces. Slide your back out of the way for a minute and make sure you have your center mark on your front and your center marks on your gusset. Flip it so that you match up those center marks. I'm going to clip a few right along that flat edge just so it doesn't shift any, and then I'm going to pull up the side of the gusset so that it's flush with the side of the front. Start clipping there, and that will let me ease this curve in. If you have any problems easing it in, you can make tiny snips in your gusset to help it spread. You can see I have a little bit of overhang there. That just means I need to do those snips to help that gusset to spread around the curves. No big deal. I want to make sure I make those snips to keep them within the seam allowance. We do not want to make them too large. And that'll just help that spread, so then you can see I can push it down and get the perfect fit. So here is how my gusset looks on the front, right sides together. I will start sewing here at the top and go all the way around and back stitch when I start and stop at these top edges, making sure I use the proper seam allowance on to sew these two together. After I do this, I'm going to repeat those same steps with the back, making sure I don't sew the flap at any point in the seam. The flap will be kept out, and then we'll do the same things with the lining, and then we're pretty much done with it. So here's how the front looks. You can trim up your seam to about 1/4 of an inch if you want to, but you're going to repeat those same steps to attach the back exterior to this side of the gusset. Just make for sure that you do not catch the flap in the seam allowance. The flap will not be sewn down. After that, you're going to do those same steps with the lining. Now, just note that the lining, she does give you the option to grade that seam so that you can have a little bit of a larger seam down at the bottom, so it fits more snug and looks neater when you look in. But you would want to keep the same seam allowance at the top so that you're still able to put these right sides together at the end to sew them. Now, if you haven't added your D-rings, make sure you do that. I'll show you how I do them, but you will just put them in the center and have the D-ring going down and baste in place. I'm going to go ahead and do this step now before I add the next one, just for a little bit of ease here. This is what we have left, our exterior, which is wrong sides out. You can see I have the flap tucked in there, but it's not caught in the seam allowance. And we have this free edge here on the back, this free edge on the front. We have the lining turned right sides out. Now yours might have a pocket in it. If yours has a pocket in it, make sure you put it against the front so that you could put on your twist lock if you haven't already and if you're using one. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to put this lining inside the exterior, the right sides together. I'll start by matching up these seams. You can either nest or butterfly the seams, and you're going to clip all the way around the top. Once we do that, then we're going to sew around the top with the seam allowance, given the pattern, then turn through the zipper pocket. I'm going to go off camera just to get everything clipped, and then I'll come back to sew. I'm looking at the exterior, and I have the lining inside, clipped right sides together. We're going to sew all the way around this perimeter with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Then I will turn through this zipper pocket opening and get everything pressed out. just taking the time to roll these seams under. I want the lining to not be seen from the exterior, so I'm just kind of shifting it to be that way. Of course, you could have it a different way if you wanted to. That's just my preference. So this is how it looks with it clipped all the way around. I am not worried about closing this pocket at all. I want to worry about first getting a nice top stitch and then getting all my seams out, taking the time to iron. Everything looks good. Once I have all those steps completed and I feel comfortable, that's when I close. Don't forget that I also have to add the female portion of my snap. I'm not going to do that until I remove all these clips so I can make sure everything fits nicely. You can top stitch from the exterior or from the lining, whichever is your preference. I'm definitely going to top stitch from my exterior. I'm not the best sewist. That means that I'm going to flip this all around. So I'm going to flip it inside out. I have a flatbed machine, so that's the best option for me. If you have a cylinder arm machine, of course, you don't have to worry about that so much. So now that I have it flipped, wrong sides out, I'm going to top stitch around. Make note, you are top stitching back here. You're not top stitching at all with your flap. Your flap is staying out of that top stitch. You can see it is not in your seam here. So go ahead and take the time to top stitch, and I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch. I'll start here in the back just to make sure I have that flap taken care of first. That is going to be the trickiest spot. Now that I have the top stitching done, I'm going to take the time to go in through the pocket with my stiletto, shape out all my curves. I'm going to get everything nice and press flat. And I'm also going to add the female portion of the twist lock. My Milan mini purse from Pink Pony Designs is done, and it is adorable. Off camera, I did install the female portion of the twist lock. I made my strap, and I also closed up the pocket in the back. Before we talk about anything else and look around at this adorable purse, I want to say that I do realize that I did my twist lock wrong. This is how it looks when it's open. So this is how it looks whenever the lock is coming out. It's cute. But to actually close it, I'll have to twist it to the side or down, which makes me think I should have done it the other way, because this is the way the purse will spend most of its time. I could have fixed it, and I went back and forth. Do I take it apart and do I fix it? It's not hard to change the female part, but the male part is what I actually need to change. So I could go back in through my zipper pocket and turn this around. It really won't take that long to do it. I may or may not, but just note that. Be careful and kind of logically think through how the twist lock will work in the end, because that does matter. The pattern itself is adorable. Look how cute that is. It can fit a phone. It can fit a couple of things like a purse, pal, wallet, something like that. I think Pink Pony even has some small wallets that would fit this perfectly. I need to look at that. The back is super cute. I put the zip pocket there because I wanted to showcase this adorable little pull and tag. Everything looks great. I have no problems. I made a few mistakes. That's okay, that's life, but I mainly wanted to make this video not because you needed the tutorial. It's super easy to make. The pattern is extremely well written, but because I wanted to bring attention to this. This is such an adorable bag. Look how cute, look how sweet it is. If you have a young girl in your life, this is perfect, but even for those of us that don't like to carry a lot of stuff and want something simple, it's super cute. I really like it. I definitely will be making more. This is my second or third one I've made, and I just love it. So many ways you could do different things on it. You could definitely put a slip pocket or the zipper pocket in here. If you wanted, you could even do a credit card slot or two just to kind of have everything as an all-in-one. I think this is a great travel bag, like whenever you're out at amusement parks or hiking and you don't want something too big and bulky. So this is the pattern. This is how it sews up. My fabric, including the panel, is from Jen's Fabrics. Every 15th of the month, she has a panel blitz day. That is when her panels are 50% off. Definitely look at that information that's in my description to get the code to use for the panel blitz. And if you're watching this after the 15th, like the 16th, 17th, it's probably over, but just know that she'll have another one next month. And again, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope today in your sewing room you're able to sew up something super cute and adorable. And I also hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.